Welcome to Season 2, Episode 8 of the RC Audio Sports Vodcast. We welcome you once again. The gang is back together. Haley Wilson, Coach Robert Villafranca. I want to thank you for joining us. Also, of course, mention our sponsors, Martinez and Associates, Rufio, Texas Revolution Youth Football and Cheer, Proper Realty, Vanessa G. Medina, Brooks, Rockin' G Grill, Model Mortgage Plus, Superior Tax Service, live from the South Side, J-Rod Video Productions, and Harlandale ISD. Again, we thank them for their sponsorship. On the vodcast today, we got some shout-outs to give where we're going to talk about 14 5A Division II football. The race is heating up, but we'll begin today's vodcast with some volleyball. 28 5A, where there's still some unfinished business with a match still remaining. Coach Villafranca, let's talk about that. We had a early week of volleyball here, and a game we just finished covering, the McCullum Cowboys and the Harlandale Indians on the volleyball court.
Yeah, Bobby, the 28 5A volleyball, the regular season concluded Tuesday night, and the teams went into that game with pretty much all the business concluded except for one small bit, and that's the second and the third seeds. Harlandale hosted McCullum last night in the final night of the season, and they had already sewn up the district championship, the first seed. They were playing for that perfect 14-0 record that goes up on a banner forever, and they did accomplish that coveted undefeated season in a district championship, a back-to-back district championship for Harlandale. And South San had already sewn up the fourth seed. They had made the playoffs. They were the fourth seed, and they will go on into the playoffs. They're going to face the first seed for 27 5A, which is Alamo Heights. We may get to that in a minute. But the unfinished business that you're talking about, the 15th match, 14 matches weren't enough to figure out who the second seed and who the third seed were. Southwest and Medina Valley finished with identical 11-3 records. They split the season series, so they're going to have to play one more match. They're going to play Friday at Southwest Legacy at 5:30 p.m. to determine who is the second seed and who's the third seed. They're both going to the playoffs. The winner of that match is the second seed. The loser of that match is the third seed. And the way it plays out over at 27 5A, they're all figured out too. The second seed, well, let's go the other way. 28 5A's third seed is going to play MacArthur, which is 27 5A's second seed. And the other way, 28 5A's second seed is going to play 27 5A's third seed. There's a quiz on this, and that seed is Highlands. So it's a matter of whether you play MacArthur or Highlands. So for Medina Valley and South San, the winner finishes higher and plays Highlands. The loser of that match finishes lower and plays MacArthur, and that's what they're playing out this Friday. That will be the end of the regular season for 28 5A volleyball.
And Haley, let's continue talking about volleyball, but let's talk about the standings where we're finishing off.
Yeah, so finishing off the season, we have Harlandale up at the top of the rankings, like Coach mentioned, win a perfect 14-0 in district play. We had the chance to cover a few of those wins. We have Southwest and Medina Valley right now who are at that tiebreaker, both 11-3, which is going to be decided later this week with a game against the two of them. They split the series, so we're going to need to go to a tiebreaker to determine who gets that second seed and who gets that third seed and how that'll factor into playoffs, like you just mentioned, Coach. In fourth, so to speak, we have South San at 8-6. Fifth, McCullum 5-9, Wynn coming in at 6, 4-8, and then our last two teams we have Southwest Legacy and Southside at the bottom of the ranking. So we had a chance to cover a good chunk of those games. To me, what I found most impressive and what I keep thinking back to is that Harlandale game where they were down against South San 2 sets and made that turnaround, came back. They were losing by I think it was like 4 or 5 different points. Coach, it was match point. And just how they were able to finish the season 14-0 after being down, even in just that one specific game. I think for me is been one of the most exciting and impressive parts of the entire season.
That being the very first game in district, first game we covered, it certainly set the tone for the Indians. And then one of the very few matches that went 5 games for the Indians. I mean, I think maybe it was two other ones after that may have gone 5 matches. I'm sorry, Coach. Go ahead.
Yeah, that and Bobby, it makes me smile to remember that was our first match that we covered that we streamed this week, and it did, like you said, it set the tone for us, and I think it set the tone for the Harlandale Indians going forward there as well. And as Haley pointed out, down 0-2, South San had match point, 4 points. Harlandale scored to take that one and then take the match. And it kind of set the tone going forward. It could have gone a whole lot of different ways if that outcome had been different. But the 28-5A volleyball has been so close. Even some of the teams at the bottom of the rankings, as we've mentioned before, if you look within the sets, there's so many 25-23 sets, 25 points at 23, or even extended points, 26-24 and so forth. So very competitive the district was, even if the outcome, wins and losses, may not indicate that. The sets that these teams played against each other were just phenomenally close. I think it was just one of the districts with the most parity that I've ever seen, and was certainly a pleasure to cover that. So
I'll just throw this out there for either one of you to answer if you guys want to. As far as we had some preseason, pre-district game predictions, and how do you feel you guys felt about those? I know we talked about who you anticipated or thought would be at the top coming into this. Were you guys close?
For the most part, I think for me, we're most familiar with Harlandale, McCollum, right? Because those are the teams that we cover most regularly. I think that going undefeated is very difficult, right? And that's why I'm most impressed and honestly surprised with Harlandale, because it is volleyball such a long season. I mean, you have to think back. These teams played 20 plus games before even moving into district play, right? I feel like they've been playing for years at this point. Like, we've been talking about volleyball for forever. And so I think for me, some of my impressions were spot on. I think for the most part, though, I think it's just been such a long season. And I'm most looking forward to seeing how some of this stuff shakes out in playoffs, because I really do think anything can happen with anyone at any time. Volleyball is one of those games where you could crush someone one set, and then set 2 and set 3 come around and the tables can completely turn. So I don't know, Coach, what do you think? Were your predictions spot on?
Well, I'm kind of, well, I'd like to say they were spot on. They're not terribly surprised at the outcome. There were a few surprises, minor surprises, I guess, that you could say. Harlandale winning the district championship should not be a surprise. They were defending district champions, and they returned a bunch of players this year. Last year, they were 13-1. They missed that perfect season by one loss to the McCollum Cowboys last year. But for them to repeat as district champions, that wasn't a huge surprise. I think they were probably, by most observers, they were favored to win the district this year. The wild card for 28-5A was South San, which was coming in from playing 6A schedules for the last 6 or 8 years. They were in Class 6A, and they came over to Class 5A, and they were kind of the wild card. They replaced Floresville, that dropped to 4A. And so it was the question for a lot of people was, where is South San going to fit in this mix? And they answered that question by qualifying for the playoffs and being very competitive. They dealt with some injuries during the district season that I think hampered them just a little bit. They might have, the win losses may have been a little bit more in their favor had they not suffered those injuries. I want to come back to that point too, but I think the biggest of the small surprises, again, they're not any huge surprises, but Southwest jumping up there. Southwest was in the hunt for the district championship up until week 11, week 12. They were right there, a game behind Harlandale. And Southwest did not qualify for the playoffs last year, and here they were in the mix for for the district championship. And I think that was probably, if you want to call it a surprise, minor. I mean, it was not jaw-dropping, world earth-shattering kind of news, but that was a big change. The Dragons haven't made the playoffs since 2018, so that was a happy surprise for the Dragon faithful, and how competitive they are. They're a young group too, so I expect them. It's always probably too early to be looking at 2023, but I would expect them to stay in that mix for another year or so for sure with the current group that they have. Besides that, we knew that McCollum was going to. We anticipated that McCollum was going to struggle this year. We've talked about them graduating 5 seniors, and again, not just any 5 seniors. They graduated 5 all-district seniors. So that left kind of a void. That kind of left a little bit of a void in the McCollum lineup. It would leave a void in anybody's lineup to graduate 5 seniors, and so we knew that it was going to be a little bit of a struggle for them to live up to that season last year. They fell just short, and they were competing for a playoff spot until week 13, when they or not week 13, but game 13, when they dropped that match to South End. But I wanted to just make a quick point about injuries. The Indians 14-0. I talked to Coach Castro yesterday, and she mentioned that she had about 15 different lineups throughout the year because of all the injuries and the things that she had to deal with, some illnesses, some injuries and so forth, where that kept people kept most of her starters missed at least one game, if not more, throughout the season. So 14-0 is something to be very proud of, but they dealt with their share. The Indians dealt with their share of adversity, and Coach Castro and her staff did a great job of leading that group through that adversity, finding the lineups each night, figuring out a way, and not just winning that district championship, but winning it with an unblemished record. So, double kudos to those guys as they advance to the playoffs. And there, Haley, you mentioned the playoffs. Harlandale's pretty deep in hitters, and you have to be to advance in the playoffs. A lot of times, a volleyball team will have one hitter, and they're dangerous while that hitter goes through 3 rotations at the front row, and then less dangerous as that hitter moves to the back row. But Harlandale has got 4 very, very good hitters, very deep in hitters. So there's not a rotation where Harlandale you can say, well, this rotation they're weak. We really have to take advantage of a smaller front line. But they've got some hitters on that squad, and they've got the potential to advance some rounds in the playoffs.
Oh, they've got some hitters, all right. Oh, I love watching them hit the volleyball. Wanted to bring up something while we're still on the volleyball topic here that you mentioned, Coach, their district record last year. So even more impressive, 1 loss in district in 2 years. That is very impressive. So congratulations, first of all, to the Harlandale Indians for an unblemished district record, district back-to-back district championships, and I'm glad we were there to see the very first and the very last game there between those two. So that was a great thing to be a part of. So grateful for you guys too as well. Any other final thoughts before we move on? I mean, we do have Coach. You want to talk about where we'll be for playoffs, or how we'll let people know where we will be and who we'll be covering for playoffs?
They can always follow our social media. As soon as we get word, we'll post it on social media. So we encourage you, whichever platform you prefer, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, we'll be posting that news as soon as we get it. But the first round of the playoffs, we're 28-5A, or the district that we're covering is 28-5A. And in the first round, 28 plays 27. 27 is mostly SAISD schools, except they also include Alamo Heights, who was the district champion over there. MacArthur was a runner-up. So it's Alamo Heights, MacArthur, and then a group of SAISD schools. So that's our first round. And the teams that survive the first round, the second round then moves to more of a hill country-ish, Austin kind of area competition. You're looking at schools like Bernie and Kerrville-Tivy and some of the Austin schools there. So the first round is Alamo Heights, MacArthur, and SAISD. Second round, if you survive that, you move to the Hill Country and the Austin area schools. So any tournament, any state tournament, regardless of the sport and regardless of the direction that you go here or there, it's going to get tougher with each step. That's the design of it, and we're really looking forward to covering these teams as far as they go.
Yeah. And Haley, any final thoughts on volleyball for you?
I'm excited. I love volleyball. I'm going to a volleyball game in about 30 minutes, college volleyball, but I'm excited for playoffs because again, I think volleyball is one of those sports where momentum can swing so much. Of course it can, and basketball and baseball, softball, football, even a little bit, but volleyball with the breaks in the sets, I just think it's very exciting in a playoff atmosphere. So I'm pumped about it.
All right, cool. Which game are you going to?
I'm going to the Trinity University game. One of my close friends is a super senior. This is their last home game before hanging up the shoes. Is that maybe that's what they say in
Yeah.
volleyball? So, but no, I try to go to a lot of the games. Trinity, their program is volleyball program is absolutely top notch. So it's I try to go learn and soak up some stuff there. So when we get on air, I sound like a seasoned vet.
You are. You
All
are a
right.
seasoned vet.
Good luck to the Tigers.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
Exactly.
all right. Well, let's move on over to week 7 of District 7. Excuse me, week 7 of District 14 5A Division 2 football. Coach, you had an opportunity to see 3 games: a Thursday, a Friday, and a Saturday game. We'll get you your expert opinion on those games, and we'll talk about those here in just a minute. Alamo Heights on top of Edison, you were there to witness that. Burbank 32, Harlandale 22, you were there to witness that. Sam Houston 27, Brackenridge 24. That one went into overtime. Lanier 21, Highlands 20, and then Jefferson 28, McCollum 14, and you were there for that as well. So lots of football for you last week, Coach.
Love it.
I know you're probably ready for a break, but we got
No,
just
no
about the
break.
same.
No, let it go forever. I want it to go forever.
So let's talk about Haley. We'll talk. We'll start off with you since we started with coaching volleyball. Any of the games? I know we had a game on Thursday. Well,
Yep.
that was McCollum and
Yeah, we had the McCollum
Jefferson.
and
Yeah.
Jefferson game, and honestly, we or I'll speak for me. I came into that game thinking that McCollum had the win easy. I know records aren't always everything, but at that point in time, they had the better record than Jefferson. They'd come off of a couple of close losses, so was thinking that they were going to come out, pretty fired up, optimistic, right, about the win. Never that you're not optimistic, but honestly, they didn't come out very pumped, to be frank. Jefferson came out clicking. They looked very encouraged to be there. They had also come off of a few pretty close losses, and so honestly, Jefferson did a fantastic job that game of taking advantage of the home crowd and the home atmosphere. And McCollum just they came out flat, right? And I think the biggest takeaway for me in that game was just the penalties. There was just a lot of really tough penalties. I think that made it really hard for the Cowboys to stay in the game. And just a lot of mental mistakes. But props to Jefferson really in that game for coming out. They looked very excited. Their crowd was engaged. They were in it. And they did a great job of putting McCollum away.
Yeah, you talk about how it looked like McCollum came in flat, and it was pretty tough to watch that opening drive, Coach. The 3 miscommunication there on the fumbles for McCollum to start that game against Jefferson on Thursday night.
Yeah, Jefferson it provides a problem for teams. They've got that 3-back kind of. It's not a wishbone, but it's a triple option type of an offense. Two tight ends, 3 backs, and they're going to run that ball between the tackles. And it's the only team in the district that does that. So when you play Jefferson, you've got a different kind of a week for for preparation. So it's a matchup thing, and sometimes you match up well against this group and you don't match up well, but Jefferson's got they put a lot of marbles in the in their offense between the tight ends. I'm not even going to say between tackles, but between the tight ends, and it was a matchup that McCollum couldn't solve, and Jefferson controlled the clock and controlled the ball and had some drives, and McCollum helped them a little bit with their mistakes, and and Jefferson, ended up coming out on top, and just a couple of more games left, and I'm sure that the teams that are facing Jefferson coming up, they know this, but it's a different. You play a spread offense, that's one thing, and you play Jefferson, that's a different thing. It's like you're playing football all season long, and then you play rugby for one game or something, and it's just a different game. And McCollum wasn't able to solve that riddle. Harlandale is next. We'll see what happens on Friday.
They were the one thing that we kept talking about with Jefferson was that they were just very consistent the entire game on the offensive side of the ball and the defensive side of the ball. For defense, I don't think they had any penalties until the fourth quarter. Correct me if I'm wrong. I think that was something we were talking about a bit on air, Bobby. But their defense was very consistent and their offense was very consistent, just running quick little 4 or 5 yard runs over and over. There weren't really any huge explosive plays. They didn't really give the Cowboys any opportunities to really gain momentum because they were just so consistent and did very little things correctly the entire game, which I think helped them put it away.
Haley, when we visit with coaches before the games, they always kind of hesitate because they don't want to do the cliche. What's it going to take to win, coach? And so we just got to cut down our mistakes and cut down our penalties. But I mean, it's true, as much of a cliche as it is. And I had this conversation with my son, who's the biggest Dallas Cowboy fan I know. Nobody's going to argue that Cooper Rush is better than Dak Prescott. He's, athletically, Dak is the guy. He's going to take the spot. But Cooper Rush has done what he's done because he just doesn't make mistakes, and he just delivers where it needs to be. And it's just, you watch that, such an example, and the coaches tell us that every game. And I hate to put them on the spot with that question because I know they know that they feel like they're answering with a cliche, but it really, honestly, comes down to fewer mistakes and fewer penalties. And if you're anywhere near equally matched, you're going to win that game. And so that was my thoughts on that game.
Yeah, well, it was a 28-14 heartbreaker for the Cowboys. Congratulations to the Jefferson Mustangs on that victory. They wanted it more, and they got it. And then let's move to Friday's game that we were at as well. Kind of a little bit of surprise for me. Somewhat, I knew it was going to be a great game. These teams are, I thought, equally athletically matched. But I thought maybe for the most part of the game, Harlandale, they didn't have a commanding lead over the Bulldogs, and of course, talking about Harlandale and Burbank coming out with the win. But just like a lot of other teams in this district, they didn't have an answer for Kevin Hernandez, coach.
And go back. Just I'm gonna press rewind here. 30 seconds. Fewer mistakes, fewer turnovers. Fewer penalties, and that the turnover. Harlandale had a turnover early in the third quarter, about midway through the third quarter at their own 5 yard line, and that swung the momentum in a big way. And McCollum and Harlandale both have excellent quarterbacks. We saw Jacobs also they'll make one of the nicest runs that we've seen all year long ever, I guess, in that hurdle play if you watch the game, you know which one I'm talking about.
I saw pictures of him literally flying in the air. It's cool.
It was incredible. And he's an excellent athlete, but Kevin Hernandez is too over there on the Burbank side. He's a sophomore and he can run. We've seen what he can do all year long. We got to watch him against McCollum, and he's a gifted athlete, and Burbank does a great job of attacking the edge of their opponent's defense. And again, they just got all kinds of yards. The play of the game that we put it'll go up tomorrow. It'll go up on Thursday. The play of the game is spoiler alert. It looks almost identical to the play of the game that Kevin Hernandez had against McCollum. And he just does that. He does that very well. The scheme is made for him. And like you said, Bobby, a little bit of a surprise. Harlandale has dominated that series for a long, long time. It's been a while since Burbank has beaten Harlandale on a football field. But this is a very good Burbank team, and Kevin Hernandez he's a real dude, and it's still a sophomore. We're going to see a lot of him, and you saw you saw the defense, Bobby. They hit people. It's a very physical team, and so I think they were evenly matched. So it comes down to who's going to make fewer mistakes, who's going to make fewer penalties, and that you got to give both those trophies to Burbank and the win.
Yeah, it was again, it was a great game. a game of emotions, because of the two going back and forth. Harlandale had the lead going into the half, but Kevin Hernandez just kind of took over for Burbank in the second half, and the Indians just could not manage to get anything going of significance to get into that ball game. So
Bobby, 19 unanswered points in the third quarter for Burbank, and it starts off a lot. We make a big deal about this a lot. I feel like we do the who gets the opening kickoff. They got the opening kickoff, and so they get the first possession. And then when Harlandale fumbled at their own 5-yard line or so, it's like you give them an extra possession and you give them a very short field. And 19 unanswered points is hard to overcome, and the Indians weren't able to do it last week.
Yep, and that would cover the other game that we covered as RC Audio Sports. And then, Coach, do you want to talk a little bit about it being District 14-5A Division II football? The Edison game, it looked like the Golden Bears were able to get a touchdown at the last play of the game.
Last play of the game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, last play of the game. I saw Hector Ledesma share that information. But again, Alamo Heights in the district, we know that they're a very talented team. They're sitting at the top of the standings, and that's really what we're going to get into next. But your thoughts on Saturday's game?
Alamo Heights is dominating this district, and they dominated Saturday afternoon. I had the privilege of doing color commentary with Hector Ledesma on KCWX Saturday afternoon. Alamo Heights is really playing well, and Coach Ron Ritteman over at Alamo Heights, he came over from Johnson. Alamo Heights offered him the opportunity to be an athletic director and a head coach, and he felt like being an athletic director was on his bucket list, and this was a great place where he could be an athletic director and still be a head coach for the football team. He took that opportunity, and he's doing a great job with it. He told us at halftime that he didn't feel like the team was playing perfectly, and made me chuckle because it sure looked like it looked close to perfect to me. I'd have to go back and watch film with him to know exactly where they weren't being perfect. But Alamo Heights Tech, officially officially they they clinched a playoff spot with that win. They have not yet. One more win will clinch the district championship, but they've been rolling over opponents. They're doing a real good job. They made it to the regional finals last year, and they expect to be there. Hope to be even further. They've got a team that can do it.
All right. Well, that was week 7 of district play. Haley, let's get into the standings where we are. Let's take a look here. If you could get us that district standings where we're at.
Yeah, absolutely. So like Coach said, we have Alamo Heights, perfect 7-0 up at the top of the list. Burbank and Harlandale right now, I believe, are tied at 5-2 apiece for the second and third spots. Highlands and Sam Houston 4-5, again, same record, 4-3, battling for that spot. And then we have Lanier, Brackenridge, Jefferson, McCollum, and then Edison. So I know we have some games coming up this week. We'll be covering on Thursday McCollum at Brackenridge, and then on Friday we'll be covering Jefferson at Harlandale. So that'll be our higher seeded game, if you will, for the week. But again, these middle spots here, it still looks like things could go either way.
Yeah, and we'll get to see that offense again for Jefferson. We know it's going to be a heavy run offense, so we're kind of running short on time. So let's go ahead and get to our shout outs. Coach Villafranca, let's
I'd like to start off with Alamo Heights, dominating 14-5A D2. They move up on the San Antonio Express News rankings from 5 to 4, moving up that ladder. Haley Hurtado of Medina Valley, we've had the pleasure of streaming her games. She hit she's a senior over there. She hit the 1,000 career kill threshold. And Kayla Reyes was the SAEN. Well, Angelina Munoz of South San and Kayla Reyes both earned game balls for the San Antonio Express News. And one last quick shout out: the boys basketball starts after school practices this week. So a shout out to all of those.
All right, that's our vodcast for this evening. We look forward to seeing you guys Thursday. We will be at Alamo Stadium, and then Friday at Harlandale Memorial Stadium. So we'll see you guys then. Make sure you follow us on all our social media platforms. Have a good rest of your day.